Hello, hello, hello. Donna Reiners here, and I have a little thing going on inside me I want to share with you today. And it's on the Proverbs 31 woman. And for you who are men that think this doesn't apply to you, I think you should listen up because these are just thoughts I want to share. First of all, I want to say that there are many, especially in the USA, that think a Proverbs 31 woman is a woman who stays at home, washes her clothes, cooks a meal 3 times a day or for her spouse and her children, make sure all the lunches are in place, make sure everything is great at home for when the man comes home or the spouse comes home or whatever. So I just want to give you a picture for you Bible thumping believers out there that think that that a woman is supposed to be doing all this stuff, all this domestic stuff. I'm just saying, I want you to just look at this. If you take your life from the Bible, I take principles from the Bible. I love all the different things that we gain from the Bible, okay? But I want you to see reality. So first of all, I wrote some notes for myself, so just hear me. In Hebrew, that the woman means valor, strength, and excellence. It does not mean a housewife. And it's a Hebrew word. I can't say it, so sorry. I'm going to butcher it. But Eshet Chayil or whatever. It was an honor sung by men to praise women of influence and courage. The woman represents the divine feminine expression of what? Of wisdom. It's also a type and shadow of the Spirit of God moving through a woman, of course. Okay. The spiritual core is a woman anchored in reverence for God who has discernment and intuition. Don't we all want discernment and intuition? She's clothed in the strength and dignity. She has inner confidence. She has peace. It's not necessarily about fabric, although I'm sure she had wonderful, beautiful, amazing fabric. Hello. Talked about how she laughed at the days to come, which was, talking about having foresight and having trust, of course. But now look at this. For those of you who have an issue with women working, I'm just saying, she was a merchant, she was an investor, and she was a property owner. Remember what it said. She considered a field and she bought it. Out of her earnings, she planted a vineyard. She had money, people. She ran multiple streams of income. And what do I mean by that? She had trade, textiles, agriculture, import, and export. Look it up, read it. She says she managed her servants. She had employees. She delegated household duties. Do you honestly think a woman at that time who is described like that had time to cook and clean and school and all the other things that women here in the USA think they're supposed to be doing all day long? She supplied garments to merchants. That was a wholesale business model, not homemaking. She's strategic, not frantic. She planned ahead. She invested wisely. She had multiple resources. It talked about how she was respected in the city gates. What's the city gates then? It was a place of government. It was a place of business. She trained others. It said she gave portions to maidens, implying mentorship, implying generosity. It said her household was clothed in scarlet. Now we understand the prophetic part of that having to do with God, but what about it being a metaphor for prosperity, for security, for being prepared? It said she spoke with wisdom. She had faithful instruction. She taught, she coached, she influenced. And look at her legacy. Her children and her husband rose to call her blessed. She inspired loyalty. She inspired admiration. It says she was praised for her works, meaning she had visible results. It wasn't just intention. It said her life reflected, to me, she reflected divine alignment. She integrated faith and family and finances and purpose. And she was congruent and coherent in what she was doing in her lifestyle. She wasn't at home Now listen, I got no trouble with being home and making babies, but she wasn't at home making babies and doing housework all day long. That is not what the Proverbs 31 woman says she is at all. In today's time, she'd be a CEO, an investor, a speaker, a philanthropist, a spiritual leader. She'd have wisdom and grace. She'd have an abundance consciousness. She would not be so into self-sacrifice, because that many times is scarcity. What would her servants be? Maybe they'd be compared to having systems in place or staff or automation to help her multiply her mission. Her children's education and home operations were supervised. They were not performed by her directly. How would she have time for that? How would she have time for that? Listen, I want to encourage you today, for those of you who think that a woman's place is in the home, or if you are a woman and you think, well, your place is in the home, that's all you can do. Not that that's not little. It takes a lot to manage a household. It takes a lot to make sure your children are growing up in a way that is of integrity and honesty and kindness and compassion, but also wise, strategic, knowing how to educate themselves, knowing how to even build businesses when they're young. That takes a lot for a woman or a man or both to do. But if you're stuck in the paradigm of thinking that your only role in life is to stay at home and to make babies and to ask permission every time you want money from your spouse, you are sadly mistaken, because that is, and if you're a Bible thumper, read it. Go read Proverbs 31 and tell me that woman had time to be at home taking care of all those things. She did not. She had servants who took care of her bidding. Why? Because she had money to pay them. It was not her spouse's money. It was her money. I encourage you today to take steps to be self-sufficient. I'm not talking go get rich and leave your honey and all that jazz. I'm saying be self-sufficient. Be self-sufficient. Figure out a way to earn income. Figure it out. And then figure out a way to pay somebody to come and clean your house, because then you're providing someone else with an income so that they can take care of things in their households. You see? Figure out a way to pay for private school if that's what you want for your kids. Figure out a way for you to prosper and for you to live out of abundance. But if you're only doing what you're comfortable doing for money and that's it, then you're not going to have multiple streams of income. You're not going to have people help you on the way to where you're going. You're going to be dependent on another human being to ask permission all the days of your life. And I'm sorry, women, but I'm all about women being empowered to be independent. I'm not talking about independent from your spouse, living two separate lives. I'm talking about being a participant in your household in a very strong and viable way. A very strong and viable way. And not just having to say, honey, can I please have some money? Honey, can I please have something? Can I go to the store and buy something extra today for myself? Oh my gosh, there's a vacation I want to go on. I want us to go on and it costs X amount of money. Can we start putting away a little bit of money every month for that? That is not truth, guys. If you're a Bible thumper, this applies to you. If you're not a Bible thumper, then I encourage you to have multiple streams of income, not just one, because what does that mean? That means you're still dependent on one income to provide for you for all the days of your life. So have wisdom today. Be like the Proverbs 31 woman. Be an original entrepreneur. Be a woman who is not afraid to step out and find out what you're made out of. Be a woman willing to make mistakes and willing to rise to the top and make those mistakes your stepping stones to your own personal greatness, your own personal, precious, powerful greatness that is provision for you and provision for your dreams, you know? Provision for a lifestyle maybe you've never experienced or maybe your parents never experienced. Provision for grandchildren, perhaps. Provision for your parents. Provision for maybe your siblings. Maybe there's people you know who cannot provide for themselves. Provision for them. Be a giver, be generous, but let's give and be generous out of abundance. Out of abundance, because we are willing to step out and find out as women what we are made out of. And that we are not sitting in a paradigm that is not even close to the truth. Why? If you're a Bible thumper, the man and woman are co-heirs. There's not an heir and then the woman underneath. No, these are equal positions. Equal positions. And at the end of the day, if one person needs to make a decision, it doesn't necessarily always mean that it's the man who makes it. Who's the one who lives out of wisdom? Who's the one who's listening to the voice inside? Who's the one who is paying attention to what's happening in government, paying attention to what's happening in politics, paying attention to what's happening later down the road? Who's the one who's got the prophetic eyesight to see what you need to prepare for? That's the one who gets to make the decisions. Unless you're in a patriarchal situation where you've married into something where the man makes all the decisions and you just say yes ma'am or no ma'am, and yes sir or no sir. And I'm going to tell you something. You know what that is? That's called modern day slavery. That is modern day slavery. I know I may touch the nerve on somebody, and I apologize if this gets you all antsy, but you are in modern day slavery. If you have a relationship with a spouse where you just have to say yes or no to whatever they say, that means you are compliant without thought. That means you've taken your brain and it's over here and it's not even being used. Is that really who you are? And is that who you want to settle to be? Because you'll never become all that you're supposed to become, and you'll never access the potential that already lives inside of you if you've submitted yourself out of a false obedience to be what somebody else has said that you're supposed to be and nothing more. I bless you today. This is Donna Reiners. Until soon, have a great day. Bye. You're welcome to comment. Even hate mail is better than no mail. Until soon, this is Donna. Bye.